it's a significant upgrade from our old system. So I'll get into, when we go through the checklist, I'll get into some of the differences here. You know, the fire alarm has been going off a lot lately, right? You know, with construction, with that new system being implemented, and false alarms. So people, we're getting in the habit of not reacting, okay? And we have to react when there's an alarm. Everyone needs to stop what you're doing and figure out what's going on. You know, the fire department has been here 4 times in the last 4 months, and that's really terrible. And 3 of them were false alarms. One of them happened yesterday, which I'll get into. But we have to, we can't get complacent. If that fire alarm goes off, we have to move immediately. Don't stand around. Don't ask me if it's a false alarm. Don't, you know, you got to move immediately. And with construction, there's a higher probability that something could go wrong, right? If something, you know, was electrical was cut or something like that, you know, there's a much higher probability of a fire. So, you know, react immediately. I'm going to talk a little bit about yesterday, what happened. You know, night shift did a great job on reacting to the fire incident yesterday. Essentially what happened is there was an electrical flash in the boiler room. And wires crossed, and there was a bit of an explosion with those. You know, boilers are much larger. It'd be the same thing if wires got crossed on, you know, plugging something in. You know, you tripped a breaker. This was tripping a very, very large breaker. Okay, that's what happened. And so, you know, night shift, like I said, they did a great job. So first, you know, they got on the phone and called maintenance and asked, what do we do? Where do we look? And then they called 911 and got the fire department out right away. The alarm didn't go off, so there was smoke. Somebody seen they heard the bang. They seen the smoke, and then they called 911. The fire alarm didn't go off, so the fire alarm isn't always going to go off. You know, in this case, there's portions of the building that don't have smoke detectors. We have, like the boiler room, the kitchen, we have heat detectors. The sprinklers are also kind of a fire alarm, so if a sprinkler is activated, it'll take 30 seconds, then the alarm will go off. And the sprinklers will activate when the heat gets to a certain level. So I think it's 180 degrees or 210 degrees or something like that. That's when a sprinkler will pop. So it's possible that a sprinkler could go off and the fire alarm not go off. So, you know, just because the fire alarm isn't going off, you can't be assured that there's not a fire. So if you see that smoke, you know, be sure to call 911 and get them here right away. So the only thing I'd say is call 911 first. You know, don't ever question whether you should call. Just call 911. And the fire department has been so great about the reaction time. You know, it's within. Do you know how long it was before they got here?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, and that's really good. When we had a couple other incidents, a false alarm, you know, it was 5-10 minutes and they were here. So. That's good. In Sherry's note to me, a couple of things that I wanted to mention that they did a good job was closing the fire doors. So the fire system should automatically close the fire doors, but if the fire system isn't initiated, you're going to have to manually do that. Okay? Close those fire doors. We have throughout the building, you know, all these doors that have the panic bars on and that are hooked to those magnets. They're either fire doors or they're smoke doors. And so the smoke doors are just lower rated, but they're intended to keep the smoke from the next compartment. Fire doors are rated higher. We have 90-minute fire ratings, 2-hour fire ratings. It varies on the types of building we have here. So close those fire doors. So next I want to talk about the disaster manual. after yesterday's incident, what I wanted to do was to really highlight where the checklist is. You know, the most important checklist is that fire checklist, okay? And Kathy Lamb mentioned just on the way to this meeting as well. I think what we'll do is we'll get those checklists to the beginning of the manual so that you can find them easily. Right now they're tucked, you know, towards the end. So that's something we'll work on.
We did have a magnet with some that was located at the fire panel. Could we put that back like we did? Would that be possible or not?
Yeah, sure, it's possible. So anyways, so for the time being here, the blue tag is where our fire checklist is, okay? So if you ever have a slow time, what you should do is really familiarize yourself with this disaster manual. Who can tell me where they're located? Where's the disaster manuals located?
Station 1 and 2.
Station 1 and 2, okay? So Station 2, if you're sitting at the desk, it's sitting on the wall, hung up on the wall there. Station 1, when you're in that office, so if you're facing this way in that office, there's a cabinet there, it says disaster manual, it's in there. So really any disaster that comes about is addressed in this book. And we updated it about a year ago. You know, Medicare has a lot of rules, and so there's really any disaster that could happen is in this book. The one that you're going to have to react the fastest to is fire. So get to know where it's located. So we have these checklists for every disaster. So there's a lot of pages in this book, but really what you need to find is the checklist. There's a disaster. There's a checklist for severe weather. There's a checklist for bombs. There's a checklist for everything. So that's that.
And then 1, 2, Tim, the new edition, is there going to be a spot for one?
We don't have one yet, but I would imagine that we'll get one at the nursing station here as well. Any questions with the disaster manual? So the next thing I'll talk about is the fire alarm checklist. So in the case of a fire, you know, what happens is people get flustered and you need something like this. You have to follow, you know, if you've practiced it, if you've been here 20 years, and you've practiced once a month for 20 years, you're still going to get flustered in the heat of the moment. And so you really should grab this. You need this. You know, Station 2 nurse, the charge nurse needs this as a guide. Whoever's in charge of the building. So at night, during the day, it's the Station 2 nurse. Somebody needs to grab this guide, no matter the emergency, and follow the steps on it. So as we go through this guide here, I'll just highlight a couple things. The first thing, towards the top there, it says the new fire alarm system does not have zones. So the old system, if you remember, there was probably 20-some zones, but you know, some of the zones were very large, and they covered half of the nursing home, right? And so if Larry hid that fire thing in zone 7, you know, you could have spent a half hour trying to find it sometimes because the zone were big. So we don't have zones anymore. So if the alarm is activated, it'll tell you the exact room number of where it's located. So if it's a pull station, it'll tell you pull station by room, whatever. If it's a smoke alarm, you know, this room is room 101. It'll tell you chapel 101. So these maps are important. The room numbers are on the maps. We've updated the room numbers, so you're gonna have to become familiar with those room numbers. And so forth. So that's a really a big improvement to the fire system is that zones. We should be able to now, when the nurse goes to the fire panel and sees where the fire is, we should find that fire almost immediately. Call over the walkie, it's in room 521.
Can you explain how the numbers work? So it really is really easy now to find out where, you know, like rooms where there are because of how it's set up.
So we renumbered the entire nursing home. We didn't do anything with the assisted living, but we renumbered the whole nursing home. So the 100s are the chapel here, Bovern Hall, laundry, that way. The 200s is the administration wing. So across from my office, that hallway is 200s. And then the odds are on the, let's see here.
Leave it on right.
They're on the east side, or on the west side. The odds are on the west side, and the evens are on the east side. So the 300 hallway is the long hallway going east and west. The 400 hallway is the long hallway going north and south. And then the new wing is 500, okay? And so the odds are on one side and even are on the other side. So all those are renumbered. Okay, back to the checklist. We have 2 fire panels right now, actually 3. There's one in the electrical room, which most of you will never go to. It's got a bunch of electrical stuff in there. It's kind of like the boiler room. It's going to be a Tony and Mark spot. And so there's one in there. That's the main, where the main brains of everything is at. But then we also have a fire panel at the new nursing station. That's room 521. There's a fire panel at the north entrance, the new entrance, right as you walk in. And there's going to be a fire panel by the south entrance. So right outside of my office, there's some old fire panel equipment that's going to be taken out, and a new panel will be put there. So really, we'll have 3 locations. You know, we're a full city block now. So if a nurse, the charge nurse, gets middle of the night and the alarm goes off, you don't have to run across the block to find that. We'll have 3 different locations for that fire panel. When you get to the fire panel, it's going to be very similar to what you had before. You're going to hit the acknowledge button. The acknowledge button will tell you where the fire is located. Okay, so there's buttons up and down. You may have to push the down button to get more information. After you hit acknowledge and find the location, you'll hit silence, and that'll turn the alarm off. Okay, so once you are there and you know that there's an emergency, that alarm doesn't need to continue, right? I mean, that's residents get very nervous. I mean, if you haven't found now you know where the fire is at, you still got to act quickly and be on top of it. But that alarm doesn't need to sound any longer. You use your walkie-talkie to call Dr. Red, indicate the area where it is. So like I said, you should be able to indicate the exact room number. So if this room numbers, people aren't going to know, they're not going to remember what the boiler room number is, or they're not going to remember some of these odd room numbers. You're probably going to learn the resident room numbers over time. So it's going to be important to look at the map and say, okay, it's in room 521, which is the nursing station, whatever. We have a note about if it's a false alarm, call the alarm company and call Otter Tail County Dispatch. So we also included a handout here for you today. So if there is a false alarm, it is very important that we act quickly to cancel the alarm, because it's going to send the fire department out. And as I mentioned, we've had the fire department out 4 times in the last 3 months. It's unfortunate due to construction that's happened. It's all been construction workers not properly silencing the system, and they should have. But really, the first thing you're going to do in a false alarm is you're going to call the emergency number, 218-998-8555. That'll get you to the 911 emergency center. So instead of calling 911, you would call that number. It's the same as 911, but you just a lower priority than a 911 call. After you do that, you call the alarm company. Tell the alarm company that it's a false alarm. The account number is listed here, and the password is William. Okay? Third, let assisted living know. And let everyone know, right? If it's a false alarm, you're going to, over the walkie-talkie, make sure everyone is aware that it's a false alarm. And then you have Tony's, Mark's, and my cell phone numbers on there. If that alarm goes off, we want to know about it. if the alarm goes off, a lot of times something went wrong, a device is bad, or, so we really need to know about it so that we can fix it, so it doesn't happen again. Okay. Back to the checklist, it says, if there's an actual fire, call 911. So we do have that call system that calls 911 for us, but you also want to call 911 because things fail, So let's say there was an explosion in the data cabinet and the phone lines are down. It's not going to call out for us. So make sure you call 911 as well. You can't depend on that system. If business office are not here, assign one staff to the north entrance. So basically you want to, when the fire department comes, we want somebody to meet that fire department. The fire department did say good job as well to whoever met them at the door. So somebody, Sherry. So that's what you need to do. Somebody has to meet the fire department. Somebody, and at night there's only a few of you, but during the day, somebody has to let the fire department know where to go. They don't know what our assisted living building is necessarily, right? The first person who comes, they may not know where the chapel's located, or where anything's at. So somebody needs to direct them where to go. Assign one person to call assisted living. So again, you want to notify assisted living and basically everyone. Make sure everyone is aware of what's going on. Somebody should call the administrator or director of nursing and maintenance. And so in the case yesterday, it was very helpful that Tony got here and helped find that problem. Tony and Mark are going to be very aware of our systems. They're going to know better than the average employee where the problems could lie, and help find the problem. A lot of times there's potential for like a rooftop heating unit for a belt to break, and that could cause smoke, and that smoke could get sent through the heating system, and so you might have smoke coming out of one of these things. That could happen, and the fire could be on the roof. So you need to get maintenance or myself. Keep calling until we answer. And so the other night, the phone call, I slept through the first call, right? And Tony called me back, and then I got here. It's in the middle of the night. I'm sure, everybody can do that, right? Move residents out of the smoke compartment where the fire is located. So any of these doors, that's a smoke compartment. So right here we have two doors. This is a smoke compartment. So that is an opportunity to get the residents away from the smoke immediately, okay? And then if the fire were to develop further, you'd want to keep moving them away to the next smoke compartment or fire, compartment. So, realistically, if the fire started in the new wing, there's a lot of protection before you get to the assisted living building. These walls are, rated for 90 minutes or 2 hours. So the chance of a fire spreading to the other side of the building is very small. And, along the way, there's sprinklers everywhere. So with our population of people we deal with, we don't want to move them outside. It's more dangerous for them to go outside. We want to move our residents to the next smoke compartment. And you have time. Once you get them to the next smoke compartment, you have time. You got protection. So in all likelihood, if one portion of the building started on fire, unless there was a huge bomb or something, if it was just a small fire, it's not going to spread, to the other side of the building because of the sprinkler system. Oxygen, it's very important to get the oxygen out of the area. Oxygen is going to help the fire spread. So if a fire was in a resident rooms and there was an oxygen tank in there, get that out of there because that's going to cause that fire to spread rapidly. Verify the propane shut off. That there's a propane tank outside the employee doors there. You open the cover of the tank and there's